111.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, so as you know, we have that preliminary awareness for all of us that the meeting is in video and is audio recorded, and that all meetings are uploaded to the municipality's YouTube page. So by participating in this meeting, you are consenting to have your image and your comments recorded. By your attendance here, I assume that you have consented to that. So we'll start with roll call. John Levesque.
I am here.
Mary Tivey.
Present.
Councillor Bulmer.
Here.
And Township staff.
Present.
I'm not sure that we need to identify all of you. Hillary, do we?
Oh, that's perfect. So we have myself, Hillary Miller, the legislative assistant, the Heritage Committee secretary, and we have Jeff Bunn, our deputy clerk, who is the remote meeting facilitator.
Great. Thank you very much, everyone. So I don't really have any opening remarks. Looking forward to a time when we can all sit together in one room, and hopefully that's not too far away. So I'll just ask if there are any conflict of interest or pecuniary disclosures that anyone would like to share at this time.
No.
If not, I will move on to item number 4, approval of the minutes from the January 10, 2022 Heritage Committee.
Yeah.
Any errors or omissions from those minutes?
No.
Then could I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I move.
I'll
And
second.
a seconder?
Yep.
So Hillary, do we have a resolution for this?
Yep, at resolution 2022-12, that the minutes of the following meeting be adopted as written and distributed.
Thank you. So all in favor?
Aye.
We don't really have any business arising from the minutes. And then we'll move on to the current agenda. And the first item in this agenda is the Community Heritage Ontario newsletter, which again, I always find this newsletter quite interesting to read. Lots of good articles in it. Any further comments from our committee on this newsletter?
I do.
Please.
Who, me?
Mhm.
Oh, thank you, Barb. Just one piece that stood out for, I really enjoyed the story in there about the snake rail fence. And if any committee member would like to see one, the entire south side of my property still has a cedar rail snake fence. So if anybody wants to stop by and have a look at one and walk through the brambles, it's been there undisturbed as long as I've been here. So it's interesting to see the story of it, though.
That is such an interesting comment, Councillor Bulmer, because I think in Portsmouth Township, we're quite blessed to have quite a few of those snake rail fences, although I'm not sure that I've ever called it that before. We just call them a rail fence. But they're not nearly as rare as people might think. So yeah, I thought that was a good article as well. So at this point, we'll just have a motion to approve that we receive this content into our minutes. If I could have a motion to receive it. Thank you, Mary. Second.
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Hillary, if you could read us the resolution on this.
Resolution 2022-13, that the Community Heritage Ontario Winter 2022 newsletter be received for information.
Thank you very much. Item number 8, we have no delegations today, and item number 9, no correspondence to discuss. So if we can move right to our committee reports. Hillary, if you could guide us through the Heritage Committee goals and objectives for 2021-22.
Yeah, absolutely. And if it's more helpful for the committee and probably those watching as well, we can also share my screen and then we can go over the report in more detail from there.
Yeah.
That's great.
Okay, so our first report is report HCR 2022-003, which is the Heritage Committee Goals and Objectives for the remainder of this term. So our staff recommendations is just that these committee goals and objectives be received. And the purpose of this report is to provide the Heritage Committee with an overview of goals and objectives that have already been established and provide next steps on these projects. So just the background information is that a resolution was passed at the last Heritage Committee meeting regarding the Heritage Committee goals and objectives at the January 10th meeting. There were a few initiatives, so was the resolution there. And if we go down here, there were a couple items that came out of that resolution. So the first was that Barb provided the source of personal information to the township. There was also a part of that resolution regarding the orientation package for new members of council and the committee. So this package is still under review, and this will be provided to the subcommittee for comment and review once this package has been completed. And there was also the last takeaway item from that resolution was for a report to be provided to the committee regarding property standards. This has been prepared and it's on the agenda as item 10.3. Okay, so just to review the goals and objectives. So the first goal is a quarterly report to council. So a progress report was prepared regarding the Heritage Committee goals and objectives, and this was presented at the March 2nd council meeting. And another progress report following this meeting will be prepared for the May 4th meeting. And then the next item was the Doors of Twizzlers project. So at the last meeting, this was established that the project had been put on hold for now, and for John Arnold and John Levac to provide any future updates on the status of this project as they're available. Our next item is the addition to the Heritage Register. So we also have a report on this agenda that where we have more updates to the register, and this is listed as item 10.5, and there's a report regarding that. And we also have two committee memos from Mary Tivey regarding additional proposed structures and landscapes that could be added to the municipal register. And Councillor Balmer also reached out to me as well, and he's looking to prepare a memo for a future meeting regarding built landmarks. So in terms of the public engagement section of the Heritage Committee goals and objectives, the township has prepared a grant application that was applied with Young Canada Works. So we're looking to get a heritage student, and the heritage student will assist with any public engagement regarding heritage initiatives. We also have a report for this item as well, and it's listed as item 10.7. For committee training, there is the Community Ontario Heritage Conference. We've also got a report on that as well on the agenda. And John Levac also emailed the committee as well with 2 free webinars. So those are listed below. One of them has passed already on March 30th, and another is coming up on April 13th. With the advisory committee orientation package. So as was stated before, staff are in the process of finishing this package, and once it's complete, it'll be sent to the subcommittee for comment and review. For heritage property visits, COVID-19 restrictions are easing across the province. So these visits could begin again soon. And then just a couple more items here. So First Nation sites and heritage, we do have a subcommittee on that to continue researching that as they are. With the land acknowledgement statement, there's no updates at this time. For financial implications, of course, there are obvious costs for those that do want to attend the Community Heritage Ontario Conference in Brockville. Again, these are covered in the report later on in the agenda. And with the attachments, goals and objectives are further listed out here for the committee to review. So those listed in yellow are ongoing, and any green items are those that have been complete.
Pretty good.
Any comments on that report? So aptly given by Hillary.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mary. Yes, Mary.
What is the status of the land acknowledgement statement?
I defer to you, Hillary, or to one of the other staff members.
Go ahead,
Jeff would like to respond to that.
Yeah. So right now, the last update I received was it was with the County of Wellington, and that's all I have been told at this time.
I have
Yes, Mary?
a secondary question then. So forgive me, I wasn't clear with this process. Was it the township that engaged the consultant or the county to
Sorry, Mary.
develop
For which are you talking
the land acknowledgement statement that the consultant produced? Was that for the county or for the township?
that was for the township? If you're referring to the one that's at the start of the Heritage Registry, that one, or
Mhm.
am I confusing that one? Okay, yeah,
No,
that was
that
the
one.
township initiated that.
Uh-huh. All right. And so is that, so we're waiting then for the county to produce a statement that will be used at before meetings and before, I assume, township communication?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So as a point of clarification, then, the consultant was made available solely for the statement that is now reflected on the Heritage Registry. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yes, that's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just had another comment, Hillary, if we could go back to the colored chart. If you could share your screen, I think there's one item there that is falsely colored.
Oh, absolutely, Barb. Hold on. I can scroll down. Let me know when to stop.
Okay. Subcommittee to continue looking at signage, the signage one, heritage signage.
Oh, yeah.
That should probably be yellow.
The yellow. Okay, we can update that for the next next one. Perfect.
I'd like to compliment you on this presentation because the chart format works for some of us, but then also did the point form editorial part that you read. So I think you've got this report well covered, both presentations. If there are no other comments about the Heritage Committee goals and objectives for 2021-22, could we have a motion to accept this report into the record?
I have one question, if I could, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry.
No, that's
Matthew,
okay.
Somehow I don't have your hand coming up here.
Oh, sorry. There, my hand's up.
There you go. Yes, Councillor Bowman.
Yeah, I have a question for staff, and perhaps anybody in the committee can recall. I seem to recall we had a letter, in addition to the interest from the or the Black family, the Orr family regarding the trail, and it was from the Gilmore family wrote us a letter. I think we also received some correspondence from the Historical Society regarding the Colleen School bell that was purchased with the idea of finding a spot on the Puslinch Community Center grounds for it to be displayed. And I wasn't sure. I have a recollection that we discussed it and it was to be put on the redevelopment plans for the Puslinch Community Center grounds that we're going towards for the Rec Committee to review or for Council to review. And I'm just wondering from staff if you have noted it on any of those plans, or am I just imagining it came through this committee and I have to go back and do my homework? I couldn't figure out where it came through, but I know we discussed it somewhere about putting it on the plans, sort of as part of the sign project, the memorial for the Colleen Bell and all that is to stand in place of all the original one-room schoolhouses. Does that ring a bell? Oh, sorry, that was a terrible pun. Oh. Jeff or Hillary, does that make any sense? Do you recall any of that?
I don't recall talking about that during this meeting, Councillor Ballmer. I believe this is the first time hearing of the bell. Jeff, have you heard about this in previous meetings?
No, sorry, this is new to me, but Councillor Palmer, what we can do is take it away to our Director of Public Works and Facilities and ensure that it's been captured as part of the plans
Thank you. That'd be great, because I do recall, and it may have been before either of you were with this committee, and I have to go back through all the minutes, but I think we had endorsed, or the rec committee had endorsed it being somewhere on those plans where people could see it. And I just want to make sure it isn't lost. And if possible, link it to our sign initiatives, so it's captured in our work plan in the future. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Certainly,
sir.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Palmer, just for the records for the resolution, what was the name of the bell again?
It was the original school bell from the Colleen School. And I can try to spell Colleen. I believe it's Killean. Is that correct, Mary?
Yes, yeah, and it was in September 2019 that the Puslinch Historical Society brought a request to council
There you
asking them
go.
to have a bell located in the Millennial Garden next to the library.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
And if I could respond to the first part of your statement there, Councillor Bulmer, and Hillary, if you can clarify this for me, I do believe that a letter was sent out to the Gilmore family in response to their initial request about recognizing the Black property. And again, I believe that we had thought we would link that particular historical note to the signage project.
Mhm.
Does that sound familiar, Mary?
Yes, it does sound familiar, and as well, there is a sign, a plaque actually now in the community center that was
Mhm.
put there through the Historical Society that also refers to that land ownership and use. And I think that, what I was wanting to do without gaining access was to review that information on a plaque and then figure out how to either extend it out in an exterior form or reproduce it some way. So that's, from my perspective, that's why that's been a bit on hold, because we really haven't been able to get in there. Does that make sense to you, Barb?
It does, and I agree with you. That project by the Historical Society was very well done, and all of those plaques around the village of Aberfoyle, which was the focus of what you're talking about right now. But you're right, there were some terrific notes that were placed there regarding the original landowners of that property. So I agree with you. That's a great starting point, is to go right back to that, along with the photographs that were supplied with those printed documents.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think, Councillor Balmer, your point is well taken. Those are two initiatives that we could possibly link to the signage project.
Thank you.
Any other comments on the Heritage Committee goals and objectives? Then if we could have, Hillary, if you've been able to cobble together a resolution covering all these top points.
Yeah, I believe I've almost got it. And Barb, just to your point about the historical land around the community center, was that called something in particular, just so I can note it for the resolution?
The plaques are posted in the foyer of the community center. And I'm not exactly sure what the original project was for the Historical Society, but they certainly have a lot of valid information that we can take and apply directly to our signage project.
Oh, perfect. I think I got it. Something. So resolution 2022 -14, that report 2022 -003 Heritage Committee goals and objectives for 2021 to 2022 be received for information, and that the heritage signage section of the goals and
objectives be highlighted yellow in the chart, and that staff look into more information regarding the school bell from the Killian School, and that the Heritage Sign Project also includes the Killian School bell and the historical lands around the community center.
I think you've captured it. Thank you. Can I have a motion to accept this resolution into the record, please?
I'll move.
Second,
Thank you, Councillor Palmer. Thank you, Mary. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Resolution carries. Okay, on to item 10.2, the Community Ontario Heritage Conference, the budget and attendees. So I'm at this point, Hillary, do you want the committee members to make a commitment as to whether they will be attending or not?
Yes, that would be good. That way we can let our staff know and then we can pay for it as there is an early bird budget for this conference rate. So I know we do want to apply for that as soon as we can. So if we know how many people are going, then we can budget for it accordingly.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to volunteer that at this point in time, I have a conflict for the Friday and Saturday, which I'm hoping to have resolved by the end of this week. If I could let you know, and it would still be in advance of the early bird deadline for the cheaper rate. Sorry to be the person that does that, but. And then if we can go through our roll call, John, will you be attending?
Sorry, I just got back. I was just answering the phone there. It was a phone call from John Arnold,
Oh,
who extends his sincere apologies for not being here. The reason he's not here is because he has no internet at home. And in true John Arnold form, he attempted to go to the library to use internet there, but which he probably could have done, even though they're closed, but they're closed, so that failed too. So anyway, he apologizes, and I told him that that Barb's chairing it and everything's going fine, and we all miss him dearly. So sorry, I was away. So what was your question that you were asking?
thank you. Sorry, John, we've moved on to the next. Thank you for gathering all that information. That's great. I'm glad he's well and safe.
Yeah.
So we're just talking about the conference in Brockville. And if members of this committee are aware if they will be attending and for what extent, so that staff can look at our registration.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I'm planning on attending for the full thing, just like we did in previous years. That was yeah.
Good. And Mary?
yes. Yes,
I know you said before that you're quite familiar with Brockville, so it would be easy for you to attend. And I go on a limb and say that John will very likely be attending in some capacity.
Yeah, he'll be attending the full tilt as well.
Okay.
Yep.
And Councillor Bowmer, will you be joining us?
No, I don't think so, but thank you.
Okay. So Hillary, I would say at this point we have 3 members of our committee that will be attending the full conference, and that I will get back to you by Friday with letting you know if I'm able to attend.
Okay, perfect.
So I understand at this point, staff will be looking after our registration, and it's up to individual committee members to make arrangements for their transportation and for their accommodation. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So do we still need a resolution, even though I'm not able to respond until later?
Yeah, I've got that note in the resolution too, Barb.
Okay, if you could please read the resolution.
Great, so resolution 2022-15, that the report on the update of the Community Ontario Heritage Conference budget be received, and that Barb to let the committee secretary know if she can attend the conference by Friday, and that John Levac, Mary Tivey, and John Arnold will attend the full conference.
Thank you. Very, very precise. Thank you. Can I have move this resolution, please? John, thank you. Seconder?
Mary,
Thank you, Mary. All in favor? Motion carries, is now part of the record. Thank you. Item number 10.3, the report on abandoned heritage structures and property standards bylaw. Now, this was, this property standards bylaw was something that we had asked the staff to get for us, I believe at our last meeting. And I have to say, this is quite the report. Thank you very much, staff, for the detail that you put into this. There's a lot of information there. Any other comments from our members regarding this report? Or any questions that or statements that you'd like to have defined? Mary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This bylaw appears to have been passed in 2020, and I'm not quite familiar with the previous bylaw, but I'm looking at a few sections, and 23.7 says that if a building's remained vacant for a period of 2 years, a property standards officer may issue an order, to repair the vacant building in compliance with the standards set out. By repair, just install boarding on windows and doors. And then item 23.5, where a vacant building remains vacant for more than 90 days, all the utilities are disconnected, et cetera, et cetera. So my point is simply a lot of these items, these clauses are to protect others from incurring or at least access to unsafe conditions. But I wonder if these bylaw regulations, or I'm sorry, orders and compliance were in place before. And if they were, why they were not applied to the Kalfas house at the time that it was in such a state of continued disrepair, and where boardings and roofing tarps and so on and so forth were not maintained, and during which letters were written to council and to the township notifying them of this situation. Does that sound like a question to staff?
It's a very good question.
Do we have someone
Yeah.
on the staff who could respond to this?
Yeah, so I mean, to be quite honest and quite frank, I don't have that answer, Mary. I don't know what had taken place, in 2019 for when that happened. I can certainly look back to see what the existing bylaw was at the time, but I don't know if we'll have an answer as to what happened with that specific property. I can speak to sort of the process that I know now, which I mean doesn't help at the situation, and I fully recognize that. But I now and this is, like I said, I can't speak to what's happened. Like, I can only say that moving forward, and the approach with the township since passing its complaint bylaw has been, we do work on a reactive complaint process. So if the township does receive any sort of notification that there is property, regardless if it's even heritage status, to be honest, we do go out, we do investigate, and if there is what appears to be a violation of the bylaw, there is an order placed on it, and it's followed through until it's rectified, whether that involves the property owner making those changes, or we end up going to a summons to court to have the work done, or the township has, under certain authorities, the right to go onto the property, make the changes that need to be done, and bill that back on someone's property taxes. So that is the process now, and I'm sorry I can't answer the previous what happened.
If I can, through you, Madam Chair, it did say in this report that all of the complaints that were directed to about heritage properties were investigated. And I don't know if I've ever seen a report regarding the Kalfas house in response to an investigation to those the complaint about those standards. And having said that, I realize this is not, this is in the past, but it would be in the future, if someone makes a complaint about a vacant building, or at least raises an alert to a vacant building that looks at risk, and the bylaw officer investigates, is a report submitted about that investigation and the follow-up? Is that part of this? I'm sorry if I've missed it in this very large piece of paper.
I apologize for the length of the report. Once I got writing, it was hard not to keep going. It's so to answer your question, there is no report that comes out of that. That would be like a public report. There would be documents part of an enforcement order. Those are protected under MFIPA. So if there's an active investigation going on in the township, those documents cannot be released. In fact, it goes as far under MFIPA as the township can neither confirm nor deny that there is an active investigation on a property. Having said that, though, if there is a willingness of, let's say, a property owner who wants to work with the township and is willing to work with, the committee, and that can always be part of the conversation with the bylaw officer and the property owner, then at that point we could certainly release that information that there's been a complaint or whatever the case may be, or we're looking for advice on how to best deal with this property. That's something that we could explore. But as part of the normal investigation, there is not an actual report drawn up that's considered by either council or the committee.
All right, thank you.
I have a follow-up question comment to that, probably directed best to you, Jeff. And so following up on Mary's trend of thinking, comments were made about this particular property by the Heritage Committee, expressing concern that the building was in fact safe and sealed. Does a comment from a committee qualify as a complaint that would alert the bylaw officer, or does it have to come from an individual?
Well, that's a very good question. So I did clarify this before coming to the meeting, and under the complaint policy, it would need to come from an individual. So if in the future there is a discussion at this committee, what you would likely be advised by your committee administrator is that somebody on the committee would need to go on and submit a formal complaint. The reason for that is those formal complaints help with the due process that ends up going to the courts. So when we submit our package for any sort of enforcement that we require, the Superior Court or whatever level of jurisdiction, we need to be able to have that due process in place that doesn't give any sort of perception of cherry picking or any kind of politicalization of the issue or a bias of staff on the property owner. It does need to be generated by a member of the public. That information is not shared with anybody. Of course, obviously the judge it would be, but it's not made public who the complainant is.
Thank you very much. That explains a lot. Any other comments about this report?
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Mary, you go ahead first, and then you, Councillor Palmer.
So, Jeff, is this standard practice in other municipalities where the bylaw is set by the municipality, but the responsibility for initiating it is to an individual?
I can't say that I've researched if it's a best practice. I could certainly look into that and then bring something back to the committee. But I know from working in smaller municipalities that often it is complaint driven, just based on limited resources.
Yeah.
But I don't want to say it's a best practice if I can't confirm that. I don't want to mislead anybody.
Yeah, I noticed there was some element in this document that said that, feuds would not be tolerated. It just interests me that it's it's brought back to the public to initiate a process that is legislated by a municipality. And it may be standard practice, but it does create a fair bit of responsibility for that individual if they're the one that then is responsible for taking it to higher levels of adjudication. Am I correct in that?
Well, and maybe I'm misinterpreting. So, but I'll try to clarify if I am. Are you saying that? Are you? Sorry, I'll say this. I don't want to say are you saying in a bad way, but are you saying essentially that if you complain as a complainant, you're responsible on carrying that forward to a court? Is that what your interpretation
Yes.
is? Okay, so that's not the case. So if you complain to the township, if there's any kind of complaint, those complaints are logged, and that's essentially the trigger. We do document, the complainant, and that is kept on file on the occurrence. We call it the occurrence file. But it's the township's responsibility then to follow through on that complaint. So then we follow through with our bylaw enforcement all the way up to and including an enforcement at a senior court, for instance.
Right.
It's not placed back onto the complainant.
All right, thank you for clarifying that, because that was my takeaway.
Sorry,
And
I'm sorry if that was unclear.
I felt like I was, well, felt like I'd suddenly moved to Texas.
I'm sorry if that was unclear. No. It's not your responsibility. It's only the complainant that needs to call in or send a letter, however it is, but just to make that formal complaint.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Councillor Bowler, do you have any comments to this conversation?
Oh, yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yeah, when I'm looking at bylaws and policies, it's always interesting how your perspective can change based on the filter that you're looking at the policy with. And when I think this was 5 years in the making or so, this property standards bylaw to bring it to completion. And at that time, I wasn't thinking of anything other than what was before us in the bylaw, and didn't think of it with a heritage hat on. And I don't like to think of it in applying to specific properties, but I don't mind being informed by experience with a particular property, because I don't, especially at a meeting like this, I don't like to be pointing fingers at a particular property, but it certainly is helpful to inform myself as to whether the policy is written to achieve an outcome I would have liked to have seen in another case. So, and staff in this point, on this report, have asked for recommendations to take back with them for when this policy is updated in the future. And one that stood out for me that Mary was touching on, with the 2 years abandoned, 90 days abandoned, 30 days, the different pieces that apply based on how long a place has been abandoned. And what's interesting is that there are many places in the bylaw that speak to boarding being sufficient to keep out precipitation. But there is nothing in the bylaw that speaks about roofing being sufficient to keep out precipitation. And I think that might be an oversight in the text of the bylaw that should be addressed in terms of all abandoned buildings, because the sufficiency of the roof to keep out precipitation leads to issues of a building safety and risk of falling over or collapsing in. So that would be my suggestion for staff to take back for the next update, is to consider, is there if we're going to have the boarding be required to keep out precipitation, it would only make sense that the siding and roof also be maintained in a sufficient manner to keep out precipitation from the structure. Does that make sense, Deputy Chair or Deputy Clerk?
Absolutely, it does make sense. I completely understand where you're coming from.
Perfect. Thank you. That's it.
John, did you have a comment?
Just back on the notion of bylaws being initiated through as a complaints-driven thing. I think the reality is that there's no real other way to do it. I mean, you can have any number of issues pertaining to a property that if the issue isn't recognized by someone other than the owner as being irritating or a problem in some way, and if it's not a problem to the owner, then it's really not a problem. And it can't possibly be up to anyone, any staff member or bylaw officer to actually locate that kind of thing, especially in a township like this that's very rural. So I think that's the starting point that we all have to accept is the only logical starting point, because there is no other starting point. That's all. Kind of a meaningless comment, but I thought I'd throw it in anyway.
Thank you for your insight, John. If there are no other comments, then Hillary will ask for a resolution to have this document received.
Perfect. So resolution 2022-16, that the report on abandoned heritage structures and property standards bylaw be received for information, and that staff take back to the next update to the property standards bylaw comments regarding sufficient protection for the side and roofing to protect structures.
Thank you. I think that includes those remarks. Could I have a motion, please?
Oops.
Mary, and someone second? John, thank you. All in favor?
I do have a question if I could, Madam Chair.
Please, please.
I'm sorry, Hillary broke up there. Did I hear the word precipitation in the resolution there? It sort of blittered in and out there briefly.
No, but I can add that, Councillor Bulmer. So I can add a comment saying that staff will take back to the next update to the property standards bylaw comments regarding sufficient protection. So then if we add, from precipitation.
Yeah, to protect the structure from precipitation, the roof and walls. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so with that amendment, if we can continue with Mary's motion and John seconding and approve this resolution into the record.
All
All in
aye.
favor? Thank you. Resolution approved. 10.4, our heritage plaque update. So Hillary, if you could just give us a little update.
For sure. So when this report had gone out, was published on the agenda, we currently didn't have completed yet. As of last week, I picked up plaques from Standard Press. I let Barb know as well, since she was, of course, instrumental for this project here. And we now have the plaques at the Municipal office. So all the plaques are done, they're polished, and I think they look really good.
Great, thank you very much for doing that footwork. I do appreciate you doing the fetch and carry. And one thing I would like to add on to this is a storage place for these plaques. Does staff have an idea where we can keep them in the interim? In the past, and I'll ask John to help me with this, but I believe individual committee members may have stored them.
Yeah, Doug Mast's garage. Is where the tools were and where I think some of the plaques were as well. Yeah, it would be nice to have a central location that we knew where they were, as opposed to somebody's private property. Be a good idea.
And I concur. I think it's a good idea to keep them in one spot. All of them I have two here. It would keep our inventory complete and we would know exactly what we need for installation. So I'm reaching out to staff then to find us a place to store the inventory of the Heritage Committee's plaques.
For you, Chair, I can just jump in here. We can keep them at the town office. That's not a problem at all.
Thank you. I would just like to add one other comment going forward. And again, I need John Levesque's help with this. I believe committee members installed the plaques. I'm thinking there may come a time where we need to have possibly township staff help us install the plaques. We might have access to that should that need arise. That's a discussion possibly we could have later, but I'm just trying to be forward thinking about the plaques, having them stored in one place at the township offices, and then possibly having someone help us install them.
Yeah, I guess in the past when we were a little more active doing this, it would be quite appropriate for usually two committee members to visit a property to do the installation. give us a chance to talk to the owner as well, and talk heritage a little bit. And it was kind of a nice time. So as far as I'm concerned, that could continue. But if it makes more sense to have a staff member participate in some way, I'd be good with that as well, for sure.
I'm open to either way. I guess I'm just trying to be proactive on making sure that installation is not going to be the hiccup down the road. But I do appreciate what you're saying about the ombudsman approach, where you actually get to talk to the property owner and reinforce actually what is going on. So perhaps something that we can leave to the future when the time comes to install more of these plaques.
For sure.
Okay, thanks. Any other talk points about the heritage plaques? Okay, then.
Sorry, Chair Jefferson. I just raised my hand. I'm sorry. I did.
I'm
what
sorry,
I'll do
Jeff.
too. No. What I'll do too is I'll just talk to the Director of Public Works too, just in between your next meeting and this one, and just see if anything comes up, any kind of concerns get raised. I don't know if there would be, but just in the interest of moving that forward, Barb, to your point, I will double check that with him and let the committee know how it goes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Hillary, if you could read the resolution for us, please.
Sure. That the verbal update, that the report regarding the status of the Heritage Plaque Program be received for information, and that the plaques be kept at the Township office for storage, and that staff reach out to Public Works regarding the installation of plaques.
Okay, could I have a motion to receive this report into the record, please?
So move.
Thank you, Councilor Palmer, seconder.
Mary, seconding.
Thank you, Mary. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. Our next item, the Community Heritage Ontario Award nomination. Hillary, would you like to speak to that item, please?
Isn't it Heritage Register update?
Yeah, sorry, Barb. It's
Oh, did I skip one? I'm sorry. Let's go back to 10.5, the Heritage Registry update. Mary, do you want to speak to that directly, or will I have Hillary jump in here?
Well, I think that I think Hillary needs to speak to this.
Okay, Hillary.
Right, for sure. Just give me one
Thank you.
moment. Report. Okay, so I will share my screen with the committee. There we are. So this is the report 2022-007. So the Heritage Register update. So I have a bigger report as well. We've got a few items. So I know at our last Heritage Committee meeting, there was an expression of interest that the Heritage Committee was looking for somebody to draft an article regarding the Heritage Register, as the committee worked hard on it and wanted to, I guess, kind of share it with the broader Heritage community. So if anybody was looking to write that, if the committee could pick a person to write that, and then they could send that article to me for submission to the Community Heritage Ontario. The township has also created a form on our website that enables residents to propose to have their properties listed on the register. And as well, the last item on this report is that we did get an objection letter received for a property on Wellington Road 35. And if the committee has any comments regarding this, that we will provide it for council at their next meeting. Okay, so with the purpose of the report, we did get an update from the resolution passed. So the report essentially is providing the Heritage Committee with an objection that we received regarding a listed property. So at the January 10th Heritage Committee meeting, there was a resolution that was passed. So the first was that Heritage determine when articles were due for submission to Community Heritage Ontario. And the second, the staff to include a form on the website for residents to reach out with information about their homes for a possible inclusion on the register. So I reached out to Community Heritage Ontario, and they do publish their article or the newsletter 4 times a year. So their upcoming deadlines are June 10th and October 10th. However, articles can be submitted at any time, and as they do like to have a bank of stories, so they don't publish everything that they received right away. They just kind of like pick from their bank of stories, and then that's what they put into their newsletters. So if there is a committee member that does want to write an article about the register, they can let me know, and then we can submit that article to Community Heritage Ontario on behalf of the Heritage Committee.
Well, I think I will, it's Mary speaking. I can do this so that the committee members will know that someone is doing this.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay. And I'll do it before June the 10th. And if I could ask Hillary, is this, so I'm assuming this is something that needs to be approved by the township before I submit it?
Yes, that's correct, Mary. So it would need to go through the township first, and then the township would submit it on behalf of the whole committee.
And can you remind me when our next Heritage Committee meeting is?
I believe it's July 4th. I don't quote me on the date, but it is in July.
All right, so I would assume as well that this piece should be circulated to the committee members prior to submission to the CHO.
Yeah, we can definitely circulate it to the committee. If they've got any comments, they can make it then and let me know individually. And then once it's all looked at by the whole committee, we can then submit it.
All right, thank you.
All right, so our next section is the proposed property addition to the Heritage Register form on the township's website. So we do have a form on our website now for the public to fill out if anyone thinks that their property should be listed on the Heritage Register. So we've got this in 2 locations on our website. So we do have a forms and payments page, and then we've also got a section specifically about the heritage in the township. So I have included a link here. And if anybody has any comments or feedback that they wish to make on this form, they can let me know for sure, and we can incorporate those changes into the form.
It's Mary.
Mary.
Madam Chair, I really appreciated that, seeing that. And I thought it was a combination of a good information gathering tool, but also quite user friendly. And when I looked at it, I didn't see anything that would, well, what I'm trying to say is I thought it was very inclusive. It was good form for the public to be able to use. So thank you.
I agree with those comments, Mary, and I particularly liked the idea that the link was in 2 locations, but it's user-friendly. It's easy for somebody who is interested in their property and interested in, let me back up again. I think it is a good segue to the Heritage Committee. I think it could even raise some interest. I think this entire topic and this entire report, there's a lot of information here. The staff has done an awful lot of work for this agenda. And I will say all of this is concise, and I'm really appreciating it. But some of these items in particular, I think you've gone extra mileage on this, like coming up with this form linked to the website. So kudos to you.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments from committee members on this report?
I have a couple comments, Barb, if I could.
Yes, John.
First of all, 100% agree with what you've said about the effort put on here by staff. This was pretty elaborate and done in seemingly very short time. So yeah, very noticeable and just very excellent. Okay, my question. What's the response been on this form?
So far, we have not got any response on the form yet. Nobody submitted anything as of yet, but.
Okay, no worries, as you know, it takes time for something like this to generate, but once things normalize just a little bit more, this strikes me right away as a natural place to put the doors of Puss Lynch Heritage poster in as some kind of an incentive. So there's going to be some ways to actually bring some attention to this form if it's needed, and that could kind of pick it up a little bit. So just know that we're kind of watching it from that perspective as well.
That's an excellent observation, John. And I think the thing is awareness for the average person to go to the township website and to actually seek out a form like this. I think they have to be interested and engaged, but possibly there's a little bit of homework that needs to be done by our committee just to raise awareness of this. And I'm just thinking going forward, we have the perfect vehicle in the Puss Lynch Pioneer. Possibly once we have Mary's letter to the broader group, including council, and a publication of what we have done with our registry, perhaps we should maybe just brag a little bit, and maybe we can have a column in the Pioneer where we're talking about the registry now, we're talking about our impact statement, Indigenous impact statement, and then referencing this form. So I see that down the road, and that's something that I wouldn't mind taking on, just as a community awareness of what's been happening. So I think staff has done a great job in making this form and these documents available, and perhaps it's up to us just to point the average Puss Lynch resident in the direction of awareness of what's going on.
Mhm.
So any other input or any other suggestions of how to make people just aware of this?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yes, please. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Excellent discussion. I appreciate all the ideas here, and I think they're great. And I hope we can move on all of them. The other one is the township recently launched its own social media platforms. And if there was sort of an annual heritage thing that we could tie, just a reminder once a year going out on the social media feeds, it'd be another place to promote it. Just because we have new people all the time and doing it once, it's not a one and done thing. New people are moving in, buying houses. If we could tie it to some provincial or national event that, sort of, I don't know if we have a heritage month, but if there was something that sort of went out at the same time every year, just a little reminder that it's there, that might be helpful as well. The other piece we haven't spoken to yet is the objection letter. Is that, before we close the discussion on this report, would this be a time to discuss the objection letter, Madam Chair?
Please, that would be the next item. So if you could initiate that.
Thank you. Yeah, I noticed, and I'm going to pick up on some of the language here. They talked about their property being added to the registry, and I've also noted we often use the same language about a property being added to the registry, but in my mind, it's not the property that gets added. It's a structure, it's a building, and the property is the address. And so I'm concerned that when they read or heard the use that their property had been added to the registry, the letter reads to me as if they believe that everything on the property is now part of the registry. And I don't know if it is or not for that. I know exactly this property, but I wasn't sure if every building was included. But they're talking as if it is. And I'm not sure if staff had a chance to reach out to them to answer any questions, or if the family reached out to staff before they read this letter. But I'm concerned that there's a misunderstanding there, and I want to make sure that when we're talking about the registry, we're clear that we're talking about adding a building to a registry, if that's what we're doing, as opposed to adding an entire property, just to avoid this kind of confusion in the future, if that's what this is. So thank you.
Any comments from committee members? Mary, please.
I might be, through you, madam, I might be incorrect. So forgive me if that's the case, but my understanding is that it's actually the property that's added to the registry. And that within that, that's why we have a property address. It's the property, but within that property, there are structures that are identified as having heritage value. And in this case, the barn has not been. When I looked through our records, I did not see that it had been plaqued. And I think they're justifiably concerned about that. Whereas the house has been. And I thought that the owners had, quite a good understanding of the value of paddocks, corners, and in a way, it's a heritage landscape because it's these adjoining properties all settled by this paddock family. We obviously need to respond to this, and I think that it warrants a visit to the property and a discussion with the owners, and and to follow their recommendation with certainly more photo documentation of the barn and the house. And I think that needs to be initiated through the township office.
May I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Please, Councillor Bulmer.
This is so you've just opened my mind wide open here, Mary. Changed my entire understanding. So if my property, if my property were added to the registry, I wanted to remove any of the structures on my property, it'd have to go through the Heritage Committee as opposed to just the building that's identified on the registry.
Please, Mary.
I believe that agricultural buildings and outbuildings are generally not included, and I have to review the regulations under the Ontario Heritage Act, but that is my understanding. Yes. So Matthew, I think the answer would be no. When we look at the Municipal Heritage Register, we identify the buildings that have heritage value are identified on that register, and buildings not identified are, as far as I'm concerned, not on the register. Although the property is that confusing enough?
Slightly, but I think we're parsing it out, and I think I'm only asking all these questions because this is going to go to council, and I want to make sure that we're as clear as we can be when this is discussed at council, that
right,
it isn't every building on the property that's on the registry. It's a specific building on the property that's on the registry, but the letter of concern extends to an agricultural structure that they feel they may or may not want to keep in the future, and believe it would be subject to the restrictions of being on the registry because it's on the property.
So if you, if I can just respond to that,
Please, Mary.
if you extrapolate that to a situation in which a structure is designated or a property is designated, which is, we're in terms of a registry, we're almost working, not we as in Puslinch, but the province is working top down. So the initial work was in designating buildings, and they had to be identified by property, but the building itself would be very specifically identified and its heritage attributes specified. With registries, now we're listing the property, and as part of that, we've listed the significant structure on it. And in this case, we have not listed the barn.
Okay.
There's another case where we have,
Right.
and that is with the Piper Hill Farm on Arkle Road. So I think that's why I said I think that this situation obviously requires some updated communication about what is considered of heritage value on the property, and also that that a site visit would be helpful in the terms of them feeling responsible for maintaining the residential structure as well. It's not clear to me if that's also an item of concern for them.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I could then make a recommendation that as staff prepares a report for the council meeting, that it clearly identify that while it is the property that's on the registry, it's only a particular structure that gains the 60-day protection from the registry. If that's how I understand, as Mary explained, I think that's a very good explanation. Does that make sense, Madam Chair?
Yes, it does. And I think, again, to reiterate what the two of you have said, our registry, for the purposes of identification, has a municipal road number, has I don't know what the terminology is, but a township roll number, which pertains to identifying them, both related to the property. However, our registry, in its definition and description, is very specific about which buildings at that address are on our registry. I think you both hit it. Communication is key here. We have got somebody who is objecting, and I think it bodes us well to respond in kind, to be very clear, and this would help again with the staff presentation to council about what is listed on our registry. But then also, as Mary suggests, take up the offer of additional photographs, initiate more conversation and assurances about what our registry is showing at this particular point in time. Does that sound as if I've blended both of your comments? Any input,
Yes.
John? Mary, did you have an additional comment?
Yeah, I did, and that is the letter from the Paddock family has the property listed as 4232 County Road 35, but the property seems to be at 4227 Wellington Road 35. I've checked, and they I think that needs to be clarified. One of these addresses is wrong, and I think it's the address in the initial letter. I think it might just be a typo of some kind. But for the record, there's two different addresses here.
Right. And perhaps there's a way just to cross-reference that at the township office level without using Google Earth. I'm not sure. But yes, we definitely have to clarify that. We have to be clear on the property that we're speaking to.
Well, I did use Google Earth. Yeah, for those who are interested, like this is the house. Oops. Yeah. And that's the one they're speaking of. And it is 4227 Wellington Road 35. So.
Okay, well then that needs to be corrected on our registry.
Yeah. Oh, I think it is.
Oh, pardon me, I've got it backwards. It's the letter. It's incorrect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
In communicating with the Paddock family, we have to ensure that we do have the correct address.
Mm-hmm.
So is this something then that we can have staff initiate with an initial response to this letter?
Staff can absolutely respond to this letter for sure. And we can also look into the address as well.
Okay.
Sorry,
And then in inclusion in that communication with the family, I think would, yes, Jeff, please.
Sorry, I just wanted to make note that for the process wise, we will submit a report to council and seek their decision whether they want to move forward with the listing status or not. But we will include the comments here. I just, Hillary, to your response, I just want to make sure it's clear that we can still reach out to the property owners, get that clarification. That's not a problem. We will certainly want to do that for the council meeting. But all the feedback that you're providing today will be summarized, and hopefully, Hillary, we've either captured that through a resolution, just so it's abundantly clear we haven't missed anything or misinterpreted. But that would be the catalyst. And then what we could do as part of that is, as part of the recommendation or options to council, it could be to send it back to the Heritage Committee for further investigation or working with the property owner, et cetera. But it would just go to council for that direction as to what the next steps would be. And that could be the recommendation, of course, of what you guys are saying right now. I just want to be very clear on that so that it just manage the expectations.
Thank you very much for Jeff. That explains how these letters work to committee. So I didn't quite appreciate that, but thank you for that clarification. If there are no other comments, I will ask Hillary to read the resolution for us.
Hold on. Okay, so that report on the Heritage Register update be received for information, and that Mary Tivey to write an article regarding the Heritage Register to provide the committee secretary. This article for submission to Community Heritage Ontario, and that staff to look into future social media posts to promote Heritage Committee initiatives, and that staff prepares a report for council that identifies that this property is on the registry, but it is the only house. It is only the house that has protection on the register, and provides the Heritage Committee's recommendations, and that staff reach out to the property owner to clarify the address.
Are there any errors or omissions in the resolution? Everybody happy with the wording? If I could have a motion to accept that resolution into the record?
Yep.
Thank you, Mary. Second?
Second.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
And accepted into the record. Okay, our next item on our agenda is the Community Heritage Ontario Award nomination. So Hillary, could you speak to that for us, please?
Absolutely. So Barb had reached out to me initially. She saw on the Community Heritage Award or Community Heritage Ontario website that they had a nomination that was open for an award for, let me see here, the service to a municipal heritage committee. So Barb has suggested that we nominate Mary Tivey for this award. So we reached out to the rest of the committee, sort of without Mary knowing, and put together a nomination that we then provided to Community Heritage Ontario. So we don't have any word yet on a decision that's been made, but we can definitely let the committee know when a decision has been made. We wish Mary luck on that, and I know the committee definitely commends her for all of her hard work and the dedication and passion for heritage.
Well said, Hillary. Thank you. Any other comments? Hi, Mary. Any comments?
Well, thank you very much. This was not expected, completely unexpected, and I'm not sure that that it's deserved, but I appreciate the nomination very much. Yes, thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. We had feedback from all committee members. Any other comments from committee members? Okay, so I guess we need to have a resolution for this item, Hillary.
Okay, so resolution.
Oh,
Sorry, Councillor Bowman, thank you.
Go ahead, Councillor Bomer.
I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. I was going to move the motion, but I have to wait till the motion's read, I guess.
So resolution 2022-19, that the report on the Community Heritage Ontario Award nomination be received for information.
I'm sorry, the only other agenda motion I usually get so excited about is the one for adjournment, so sorry about that, Mary, I jumped the gun on you.
That's quite all right.
Moved by Councillor Bowler. Second,
Second.
John Novak, all in favor?
In favor.
Thank you. Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, on to our next item, the potential heritage student update. And this is always exciting this time of year when we hope to get a summer student working with the Heritage Committee. So Hillary, I know that you have applied for a grant for that. I'm not sure if there's been any feedback on that yet, or if
So Young Canada Works, they let us know that they will be contacting us sometime in May, whether or not the funding request was approved. So we've not heard back as of yet, but we're hoping to hear back in May. And we're, to see whether or not we'll get that funding.
great. And then I guess at that time, the job description is fairly loose right now, but we'll be more specific when we have a person in mind. So Hillary, if you could please read the resolution on that motion.
So report 20, resolution rather 2022-21, that the report on the potential heritage student update be received for information.
Thank you. Any discussion on that resolution? Could I have a motion, please? Thanks, Mary. Second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Bowler. All in favor?
In favor.
Approved. Thank you. And then Regeneration Works, potential funding opportunities for some of the projects that this committee has tabled already. We're hoping to get some funding for those. And again, Hillary, if you can enlighten us on what staff have been able to search out for us.
Sure. So this actually was brought to my attention by John Arnold. So it's too bad he's not here to talk more about it, but he did notice that. So this is also through the National Trust. So they have a section of their website, which they've also branded as Regeneration Works. And the website is in the report for everyone's information. So if you look through the website there, they've got different funding opportunities that could become available that might be able to help this committee. So we're just going to keep an eye on this. And if anybody in the committee wants to keep an eye on it as well. So we have taken a look on the website. Unfortunately, a lot of the funding opportunities, the deadline has passed for those, but it is a good resource. They seem to be adding stuff frequently. So it's just a resource to bring to the committee's attention and to bring to our attention as well to find funding for any future projects.
Well, thank you very much for that, and kudos to John for finding that. But we're certainly appreciative of individual and staff efforts to find funding for us when they can. If you could read the resolution for that motion, please, Hillary.
So resolution 2022-21, the report on potential funding opportunities be received for information.
Any more discussion on that resolution? If I could have a motion to receive it into the record, please. Mary, second. John, I'm just going to put you two up all the time.
We're just so agreeable.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, item 10.9, committee memo, Municipal Heritage Registry additions. Mary, did you want to speak to this, or do you want me to toss this back to Hillary?
No, I can speak to it.
Thank you.
When we had the public information meeting about the registry, Lynn Crow asked why we had not included barns that they had plaqued. And I explained that we hadn't really been able to access the structures. And it's not clear to me if those barns have been plaqued. So what I suggest we do, or at least suggest be done, is that we do some review of which agricultural buildings appear to have been plaqued and visit such buildings, to do a site visit to assess whether or not they should be on the register, and in so doing, discuss with the property owners the implications of these barns being on the register. And yeah, so I suggest that as once site visits are made possible, as a project to not only research these, but have them have them attached to the register if they warrant it. Clearly, they need to be reviewed.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Great comments, Mary. From reviewing the registry that we have and just being aware of some of the previous write-ups as are recorded in our photo record, there are a number of municipal addresses that have both the residential building, the house, and the barn structure written up or listed. So I concur with you that we certainly need to do site visits, but I think it's also of interest that possibly some of these locations could almost be like a landscape, early farming landscape of some kind. So I think we have options, but I think regardless, we need to have a look at these buildings. They need to be identified, and we can move forward. We're adding a different category to our current registry.
Mhm.
Any
And
other comments from Mary, please?
Sorry. Well, yeah, and in following those lines, I think that documentation is the most important thing that we can do here. And at the same time, if we're thinking landscapes, we can also identify other agricultural landmarks or things such as snake fences, perhaps windmills, or other things that were part of that original agricultural landscape that are now either at risk or disappearing, and really just to get a sense of these at a moment in time before things get further further demolished, I guess. So that's my comment.
Okay. Any other comments? Hillary, if you could read the resolution around this item, please.
Resolution 2022-22, that the committee memo on municipal heritage register additions be received for information, and that once site visits are possible, to review other structures of historical significance on properties, and in the future to add another column on the register to identify these structures.
Any more discussion to the resolution? Could I have someone make a motion?
I'll
to
move.
approve this? Thank you, Councillor Bomer. Second,
I'll second.
Mary,
Mhm.
all in favor?
In favor.
Approved. Thank you. And the next item, Mary, would you like to address that item?
Mhm.
The committee memo.
Well, I'm not sure if we've, as a committee, discussed adding heritage landscapes to the register. I know that there's been some discussion outside of committee or site visits about doing so, and I've published a few pieces in the Pioneer about it. But I think that the list that I included with this memo is a starting point. All of these properties are, by virtue of either being cemetery or conservation area, have already bear some protection. And I think that, I think it's a starting point for including heritage landscapes on our register. I'm not quite sure how to move forward with this, but maybe staff can talk to that.
Any other comments? I think this whole concept of heritage landscapes is becoming more and more dominant in our conversation. And I think in doing this, I think it raises community awareness. And I do think that is one of the mandates of this committee, is just to make the average person in Portsmouth aware of the heritage locations and the heritage geography around us. So I think there is a place for this, but I agree, Mary, I'm not sure how, and I'm not sure how urgent it is, but the dialogue should be there. Any other comments? Yes, Councillor Bomer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, Mary and I had an interesting offline conversation about natural heritage landscapes, and she actually shared an interesting paper with me, because to me, and I'm still trying to get my head around how to make this, maybe it isn't here, but you mentioned geography, and I know geography is more than just maps and the earth, it's people. But for me, the most interesting natural heritage landscape that we have here is one we can't see, but has shaped so much of what we see on the surface in terms of activity. And that's the hydrogeological nature below our feet that is somewhat unique. I've known people come from around the world to study some of the geological formations beneath us. And it's what enables large municipalities to draw enormous amounts of water without any apparent impact to the surface. And so I'm still trying to get my head around it, but I think Mary's onto something here. And now that we have this annual work plan, perhaps this is something that with staff support, we can better understand what it means. Like you said, is it urgent? We don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. As Mary said, some of these things already have some level of protection. But if we got a better understanding of them, they may be something that we could put on the work plan for next year. If through the end of this year, we come to better understand the process and the implications of doing this. Because I think we have so many rich heritage landscapes here, and we want to make sure if there's something that doesn't have any protection at all, that deserves some protection, that maybe it's better to put on before those that already have some level of protection under other means. So I'd like to look into this and understand it better myself. So thank you, Mary.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Balmer. Any other comments?
I can just see it now. We're going to be at the grocery store and we're going to see Nestle's with the first heritage aquifer spring water available.
You always have the best way of summarizing things, John. So Hillary, if you've been able to capture some of those comments in a resolution, please.
So Resolution 2022-23, that the committee memo on the heritage landscapes for the Municipal Heritage Register be received for information, and for the Heritage Committee to bring awareness to these heritage landscapes to the public, and to add heritage landscapes on the work plan for the next term for the Heritage Committee.
Additional comments to the resolution? Could I have a motion, please? Thank you, Mary. A second. Thank you, John. All in favor?
In favor.
Approved. And now item number 11. I need a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Favor.
I guess I need a resolution first, do I?
You do. So we've got Resolution 2022-24, that the Heritage Committee hereby adjourns at 2:40 p.m.
Thank you. I think Councillor Bromer, you may have already initiated the motion. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'd be honored to second
Mary.
Mr. Balmer's motion.
Carried. And comment, I would like to reiterate again to staff what a great agenda this was. And Hillary, going forward, as somebody who was put on the spot to chair this, I really appreciated you bringing up the notes associated with the agenda. And those talking points really helped progress the meeting quickly. So I wouldn't mind having that at every meeting, rather than having all of us shuffle through the paper on the side, but I'll leave that to the chair to decide how he would like to have it. Great to see everybody. Thank you for everything, and maybe next time we'll be in person.
Yeah,
Thank you,
and
Madam
thank you
Chair.
for sharing so adeptly.
Yes.
I was completely impressed.
We have a secret weapon. Her name is Hillary.
Yeah, she's
Pretty
mighty.
amazing.
All right, thank you.
Bye, everyone.